Hey, and welcome back to Crimes Across Borders, where each week we look into real cases from around the world. Today we are heading to Tenerife to talk about the case that grabbed headlines and spiraled fast online, the disappearance of Jay Slater. You ever watch a story unfold online in real time and it just spirals? That's exactly what happened with Jay Slater. A 19-year-old goes on holiday in Tenerife. He goes out to party, ends up miles away from his hotel, and then vanishes, just like that. And before anyone really knew what was going on, the internet exploded. TikTok sleuths, wild conspiracy theories, people picking apart CCTV clips, like it was a Netflix documentary. It got loud fast. But now that the dust has settled, the official story is it was likely a tragic accident. Still, even with that explanation, there are parts of this case that just leave you with questions. Not in a true crime twist kind of way, but in a how did this happen so quickly and quietly kind of way. So in this video, we are stepping away from the noise and just walking through what actually happened to Jay Slater and why so many people couldn't stop talking about it. Jay Slater was 19 and from Oswald Whistle, a small village in northwest England. He was known as the kind of guy who could light up a room with a smile, described by family and friends as a happy-go-lucky and one-of-a-kind person. Jay was all about enjoying life. He had a passion for football, well, soccer, from a young age, playing for Hancock United FC until he was 17. Outside of soccer, he loved hanging out with his friends, going to music events, and exploring new places. At just 19, Jay had already made a big impression on everyone around him with his positive energy and zest for life. And if you're not familiar, Tenerife is one of the Canary Islands. It's a Spanish territory, but it's actually located just off the coast of northwest Africa. It's known for its warm weather, beaches, and lively nightlife. So it's a popular destination for young travelers, especially from the UK. Jay and his friends had gone over to attend the NRG Music Festival. It's a multi-day electronic and dance music event that usually take place at different venues across the island. Think beaches, clubs, open air raves, stuff like that. It draws a big party crowd. From everything shared by those close to him, Jay was having a great time. He was posting on social media, going out with his mates, just doing what you would expect on a first holiday without family. So here's what we know about the night things took a turn. After the Energy Festival on June 16th, instead of heading back to his accommodation, Jay went with two men he met on the trip to an Airbnb in Masca. That's a tiny mountain village on the other side of the island. Beautiful, but super remote and not easy to get around without a car. At some point that night, Jay posted a Snapchat photo near the apartment door of the Airbnb, which would be the last glimpse anyone had of him for a while. The next morning, June 17th, Jay left the Airbnb on foot. It's not exactly clear why. The last known sighting of him was around 8 a.m. local time. A local woman, Ofelia Medina Hernandez, says he asked her about the bus, which wasn't due until 10 a.m., but she's not sure if he understood her response. He didn't wait, and he just kept walking. She said that he was walking in the opposite direction he technically should. Then around 8:30, Jay's friend Lucilo got a call from him. He said he was lost, he only had 1% battery left, and he needed water. He also made a video call to another friend, Brad Hargreaves. In that one, Jay showed where he was, walking over rough, rocky terrain, and said he was making his way back on foot after missing the bus. He believed it would take him about 11 hours to walk back. Why he thought it's a good decision, that it's even doable, we don't know. Jay was officially reported missing at 9 a.m., and that's when the real mystery deepened. Why was he up there in the first place? Why didn't he stay at the Airbnb or wait for the bus? And what exactly happened between that last call and when his phone went dark? Investigators haven't been able to fully answer that. All we knew for sure is Jay walked off into the mountains and then he was gone. Once Jay was reported missing on the morning of June 17th, the response from Spanish authorities was immediate. His phone had last pinged at 8:50 a.m. of a tower near Rural de Teno Park, an isolated mountainous area on the northwest side of Tenerife. That gave search teams a place to start, but it also meant they were facing some of the most rugged and dangerous terrain on the island. Police, firefighters, drones, helicopters, search dogs, you name it. They brought it in. Even local volunteers joined the search, combing cliff edges, ravines, and thick underbrush. It was a huge effort, with teams covering over 20 square kilometers, but the conditions made it incredibly difficult. Steep drops, unstable ground, intense heat, and no new signs of Jay. For nearly 2 weeks, the search continued. But as time passed and no trace of Jay was found, things started to change. Not just on the ground, but online as well. At first, social media was flooded with people sharing Jay's photo, trying to help, but it didn't take long for it to spiral into something else entirely. TikTokers and amateur sleuths started posting daily theories, some claiming he was kidnapped, others blaming his friends. People were analyzing blurry photos, zooming in on strangers in the background, digging through online records, It was like watching a true crime show unravel in real time, but this wasn't fiction. Jay's family was still out there searching, grieving, and scrolling through thousands of comments from complete strangers making accusations. Some even messaged his mom directly with really hateful speculations and a lot of threatening messages as well. And in the middle of all of this noise, more details about Jay himself started coming to light. Details that weren't in the headlines during those first few days, and they were quite worrying. Back in 2021, when he was just 16, Jay had been part of a group of local teens, a gang, involved in some drug dealing crimes and serious assault. It was a violent incident that almost left another boy dead. They used machete and golf clubs to attack him. And while the case made local news, he didn't serve jail time. The group was charged and sentenced to basically just community service. So I'm not gonna get into justice system in UK right now because that's another story. And yeah, there were other rumors too, mentioned in several reports about what might have happened on the night he disappeared. Some said that Jay had allegedly stolen a Rolex at the party, and that he was bragging about it on Snapchat. The two men he went back to their Airbnb with, at least one of them had a record, including time in prison for drugs and violent offenses. Now, is that relevant to what happened in the mountains? That's up for debate. None of it changes the fact that Jay was a 19-year-old who vanished in dangerous terrain. It does make the story more complicated because once the internet gets involved, people stop seeing a person. They see a character, a mystery to solve, a headline, a villain, a victim. And that's what made this case so hard to look away from. It wasn't just the disappearance, it was the mess that followed. The silence, the speculation, the feeling that the truth was right there, but just out of reach. So As I said, Jay Slater was reported missing on June 17, 2024. The Guardia Civil initiated an extensive search operation in the rugged terrain of Tenerife's Rural de Teno Park. This operation included helicopters, drones, sniffer dogs, ground teams covering vast, challenging areas. However, on June 13th, the Guardia Civil officially announced the suspension of the active search. Despite this public declaration, the authorities continued their efforts discreetly. They conducted constant and discreet searches over the next 29 days, aiming to prevent the area from being overwhelmed by onlookers and amateur sleuths, which could hinder their investigation. Specialized teams, including mountaineers equipped with machetes, upsailed into inaccessible areas, hacking through the dense vegetation in hopes of finding any trace of Jay. This approach was taken to maintain the integrity of the investigation and to avoid the complications that could arise from public interference. It was a big surprise to a lot of people because very often in those cases, the police does ask for volunteers and for help from the civilians, but here, that wasn't the case. So the family was feeling frustration. The frustration grew to the lack of communication and transparency from the authorities. Jay's uncle spoke publicly many times. He expressed despair over the limited information. He stated that they need to do something. The family was feeling left on their own. They continued the ad hoc searches with a small group of volunteers, and they were truly determined to find answers. And adding to their concerns was the fact that Jay had spent the night before his disappearance at the Airbnb in the remote village of Masca with two random British men he had just met during the trip. One of these men was known as Johnny Vegas, and as I mentioned before, he was convicted drug dealer. Jay's family found it very suspicious that these men chose to stay in such a secluded location, far from the main tourist areas like Los Cristianos and Las Americas, which are known for their abundance of accommodations. Glenn Duncan voiced his suspicions, stating, "Why would two lads hire a villa up here? They're down on the strip. You know what it's like down there. There's millions of apartments and hotels down there in Los Cristianos and Las Americas." Straight away, that's just a suspicion in itself. He also questions the police decision to dismiss these two men as irrelevant early in the investigation, despite them being among the last people to see Jay. The family concerns about potential third-party involvement were further fueled by the reports that Jay had admitted to friends he had stolen a very expensive watch, probably a Rolex, and he was attempting to sell it just hours before his disappearance. This revelation, combined with the suspicious circumstances surrounding the two men and the lack of transparency from authorities, led the family to believe that the foul play could not be ruled out. And I think probably a lot of you will agree with them. It is quite suspicious. And I find it quite interesting, actually, to reflect on how this case unfolded both online and in real life. On one hand, the internet frenzy, complete with conspiracy theories, the character accusations, and the relentless content creation, felt invasive and times exploitive. But even with Jay's own circle, questions lingered. No one could deny his past. It's a fact, it happened. His family suspicions of the foul play, especially regarding the two British men and the strange circumstances around that night, suggest they felt something didn't add up. It makes you wonder if Jay didn't have that complicated past that the internet uncovered. His gang involvement, his alleged Rolex theft, would his family have still suspected foul play so quickly? Or did those details, however unfairly, color their perception of the case just as much as they fueled the speculations online? Now, on July 15th, nearly a full month after Jay was last seen, a grim update came in. A body was discovered by a local hiker in a steep ravine just below a path in the Mascagorge area, not far from where Jay's phone had last pinged. Spanish police quickly secured the scene and began the process of identifying the remains. Within 24 hours, fingerprint analysts confirmed what many has feared. It was Jay Slater. According to the official statement from the Guardia Civil, the body was found in an area that had already been searched, an extremely difficult and dangerous terrain that required specialist mountain rescue teams to access. The post-mortem report, as shared with the public, concluded that Jay died as a result of an accidental fall. There were no signs of foul play. The authorities stated that his injuries were consistent with slipping or falling from a significant height, something tragically plausible in that environment. Still, the fact that it took nearly a month to find him in an area already searched obviously led to more questions. I wonder whether the body had been missed initially or whether it had somehow not been there during the earlier phases of the search. But no evidence has come to light to support any alternate theory. What's also important to understand is that authorities in Spain typically do not release extensive forensic details to the public. It's a standard approach over there, but it sometimes leaves families and the public feeling left in the dark, especially in high-profile cases like this one. After Jay's body was found and it was confirmed he died from injuries consistent with a fall, things started to quiet down, at least a little. The police said it was likely just a tragic accident, and officially that's the story. But let's be honest, people didn't stop talking about it. Not really. There were still a lot of questions flying around online. Some folks couldn't believe he wandered that far alone. Others felt like the timeline didn't quite add up. And for people who had been glued to every update from the start, the idea that it ended with he slipped and fell just didn't sit right. His family, though, were finally able to bring him home. As heartbreaking as it was, they at least had some answers. His mom and uncle thanked everyone who helped, and they did say it brought them some peace, knowing his death was likely instant, so at least he didn't suffer. But I think what really stuck with people, what made this case explode the way it did, was the way it played out online. It wasn't just that Jay went missing. It was the wild theories, the trolls, the TikToks, the arguments. People were dissecting his personality, his past, even his mom's interviews. And yeah, a lot of that crossed the line. But at the same time, some of the things people were questioning, Jay's own family had concerns too. They were suspicious of the two guys he left with. They didn't understand why anyone would be staying that far away from the main party areas. And it's a mix, I think, the strange details, the messy past, the quick disappearance that made this case feel like it had more layers. And even with the official explanation out there, a lot of people are still trying to figure out how it all went so wrong so fast. At the end of the day, Jay Slater's story is tragic. He was 19 on his first holiday without family, just trying to enjoy life. And somehow, within a matter of hours, it all ended in a way no one could have expected. Whether you believe the official version or still have questions, I think what this case really shows is how quickly a situation can spiral both in real life and online, and how important it is to step back sometimes and ask, what do we actually know? Not what's trending, not what's being speculated, but the facts. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you feel like this case makes sense now that the investigation is over, or are there still things that don't quite sit right? If you found this video interesting, or if it gave you a new perspective, give it a like, and it helps more than you think. And if you want to see more true crime cases like this, especially ones that caught fire online or crossed international borders, hit subscribe and stick around. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.